afternoon. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. Hope you're doing well today. We're going to have risotto for supper, and I thought I would take this opportunity to demystify risotto. Lots of folks have told me they don't know what it is, or they don't know how to do it, or they think it's too complicated. And really, it's easy. It just takes time. And to show you how easy it is, the directions are on the back of the box. So we may change these up just a little bit and make it our own, but basic recipe for cooking risotto is on the back of the arborio rice box, so can't be all that hard. People think of pasta as Italian, and it is, but that's only in certain parts of Italy. In other parts of Italy, riso or risotto is more familiar and more often used. It's the basis of more recipes, and that's good because it's very, very versatile and can be used both as a side dish, as a main dish, as a dessert dish. So arborio rice is the rice of choice when you're making risotto in the United States. It's readily available. It's not very expensive. You can buy it at your big box grocery stores. You don't even have to go to a special section. It's just right there with the rice. There are other rices you can use, and I will list them in the information section, but Barbara Geiger in one of our groups asked, so I thought I'd tell you. But what they all have in common is that they are short-grained, and that's different than, excuse the noise, and that's different than your regular long grain, Uncle Ben's, basmati, most of the rice that you would be used to buying in this country, and it cooks differently. The short-grained rices have a different kind of starch. There's a different procedure for releasing the starch, and that's what we're going to show you. 1 cup of the arborio rice, ½ cup of very finely chopped mushrooms, 1 finger of celery, chopped finely, 1 onion. Traditionally, you would use a shallot. I don't have shallots. I usually use onions. About a tablespoonful of garlic or 3 cloves finely minced. I have 3 Italian sausages here, and this should be 1 sausage for each person plus 1. So it's Fred and me, and we're going to have leftovers, and we'll talk about leftovers later. So 1 sausage for me, 1 for Fred, and 1 for the pot. A stick of butter, and this is going to be divided. I'm going to put it in at different times. Some olive oil, salt, pepper, and then if you want to use herbs, you may. Based on this recipe, you may choose not to. The Italian sausage is kind of spicy, but thyme is generally used based on the recipe. Now remember, what I'm wanting to show you tonight is not really a recipe. I needed a recipe to show you the method. What we're going to talk about tonight is the method. And the method is based on one more ingredient, which is 3 cups of hot broth. I'm using my turkey bone broth. I have it heating. You can use any broth you want. Traditionally, it's chicken broth because it's very mild. If you're making something with beef, you could use beef broth if you wanted to. But I use turkey and chicken interchangeably because I make my own. And this is bone broth, so it's more like stock. If you're not familiar with the term bone broth, when I made it with onions and carrots and celery and different vegetables, and then cooked it down and strained. Here's my handy dandy Griswold cast iron skillet. I have it on medium heat, and I'm going to brown these sausages. So the sausages are not quite done. I'm leaving 2 to cook a little more, and I'm taking 1 out. See, it's still not done in the middle, and that's fine. I'm going to scoop that sausage out. This was the one for the pot, by the way. I just don't want that skin on it. And I'm going to drop that over in my chicken broth. And it'll finish cooking in the chicken broth. Okay, our sausages are done, and I can tell because I look at the end and the middle is done here. But let's cut in and make sure we don't see any pink down in there. We still have juice, but it's not pink. I'm taking these. Okay, I have all that wonderful flavor from the sausage in there. I'm going to add a little, about an ounce of olive oil, and let it heat up. And then I'm going to throw in my mushrooms. I'm trying to differentiate between method and recipe, and we're in the recipe part right now, but there is a little bit of the method to it. As I said, risotto is very, very versatile, and you can add almost anything to it, but there are different things that need to be added at different times. So if you are making a main dish risotto and you're going to add some things that will stand up to cooking, you can add those at the beginning. That would be meat. You can either use already cooked meat, or you can use raw meat in small pieces, and you would brown them at this stage. Mushrooms are fine now, but we're going to cook these mushrooms long enough to cook the water out and then evaporate the water. We want brown and crispy mushrooms. If you're adding garlic, let's say, you want to add garlic later on in the process. If you're adding fresh greens or tomatoes, you add those later in the process. And I'll tell you when to do that. The very perishable items get added toward the end. More sturdy items get added at the beginning. And you'll learn that as you go along. You can try different things. But for right now, the mushrooms are part of the recipe. They're not part of your basic risotto. Okay, here you go. These are our nice browned mushrooms. I turned the heat up to brown the mushrooms. I'm turning it back down. Now I'm going to add the onions. And we do not want the onions to brown. We want the onions to sweat. So we're only going to cook them probably about a minute. And the onions are part of risotto all the time, unless of course you're making a dessert. Onions or shallots. So the onions are part of the method. I hope this is not too confusing. But your method is always going to be start with some oil and or butter and sweat your onions in that. The onions are almost ready. And I'm going to add in half stick of butter. You'll see risotto recipes with all oil, with all butter. Most every recipe I've ever seen used a mixture. And you're going to need some butter later on to get the flavor and the creaminess anyway. So that's why I start with a stick of butter, and then I'll add bits of it at different times. So we started with olive oil. We have a little bit of the sausage grease in it, and I'm adding a stick of butter. And our onions are right at the point of being translucent. And the mushrooms are just at the point of being marvelous. As soon as that butter melts, then we move to the method. Okay, butter is gone. I have 1 cup of arborio rice here. I have my heat on 3 out of 9. We're going to keep this at a medium to low heat through the whole process. Pour your rice in, unrinsed, dry. Right off the bat, if you look at this rice, you can see the difference in this short grained starchy rice than your regular long grain rice. It has a different kind of starch, and the starch is what we're depending on to make this dish creamy and wonderful. And the process of releasing that starch starts now. We're coating the rice in the oil, and I'm sorry, I said wrong. Turning my heat up to about 4 out of 9. And we want to let this toast. And that's one reason I let it cook long enough to cook the moisture out of the mushrooms. Because I want it to toast, and I want the aroma of the rice to start coming out, and that's when I'll know it's ready. It'll smell buttery and popcorny, maybe nutty. And of course, I left something out, and it's too late to put it in now, but I didn't put in the celery, which I should have put in when I put in the onions, and I'm not going to put it in now, but when you're making yours, try to remember the celery. Okay, our rice is toasty. You can smell it, and with the mushrooms and onions, it smells wonderful. I'm going to add the garlic now, and I add it last on purpose. That's how you get the best flavor out of it. Okay, now we're going to start the process of rehydrating, and this is what gets people discouraged in making risotto, but it's really not hard. It's a simple process. It just takes a little while. Usually 18 minutes. Not always 18 minutes, but close to 18 minutes. I told you I have 4 cups of broth heating, and I have that little bit of sausage in it that's been cooking. The recipe actually calls for 3, but I have extra just in case. Because like any other rice, it absorbs the moisture as you go, and the amount of moisture it absorbs may vary, but we're aiming for about 3 cups here, and then we'll test the rice. If we need more, we'll have more broth ready. Okay, here we go. First scoop. And you stir, stir, stir until the rice absorbs it. I'm adding this at a half scoop at a time. I'm not going to make you watch all 18 minutes, but I do want to show you the first couple of times. Because we want that rice to absorb that moisture. Okay. What you see down there is the butter and the oil. The moisture is absorbed. Add a second one. 2 minutes later, add a third. I'm going half cup at a time. 5 minutes. You can see that it's cooking dry on the bottom, and it's getting visibly more creamy. So 5 minutes later, and I want you to look, and I hope you can see these grains are swelling and my mixture's getting creamier and creamier. I'm going to add 2 scoops. And stir. And I, just so you know, I haven't been right here the whole time. You keep this on a medium to low heat. You can just stir it occasionally. Okay, it's been 15 minutes total. And as you stir this, you can see the creaminess. Look around here. About 4 or 5 more minutes. I'm going to put the last, no, it's not the last 2 scoops, but I'm going to put 2 scoops in and let it cook about 5 more minutes, and we'll check it to see if it's done. Okay, let's check this. I'm probably going to let it cook just a little bit more because it has still quite a bit of liquid in it. You see our little bits of sausage. Stephen Shea asked about leftovers. He thought folks might be interested in what to do with leftovers. So if you are making a big pot and you don't have a pot of risotto and you don't have a lot of people, it doesn't really keep well as a leftover because this variety of rice is going to continue to soak up liquid. So if you're planning on leftovers, take out half or the amount you think is going to be left over before you do the last addition of liquid, so that your rice is not totally done. Put it in the refrigerator. Then when you get ready, heat up some more broth, pour it in, heat the leftovers up. That will be close to the same quality as fresh. It may not still be al dente, but it'll still be good. The other thing is risotto cakes are something that you can make from the risotto. And in another video, I'll show you that. So if you see, this rice has swollen, it's puffy. We're going for al dente. The best description of al dente I've ever heard is chewy, not crunchy. And this is chewy, not crunchy, and creamy. So now we add the salt. And we need to be pretty generous with salt. That was, I have to say it's salt to taste. That was probably half a teaspoonful. And you can add your pepper. I'm adding red pepper flakes, about a quarter teaspoonful. We're going to stir and taste again. You know, I hope you can see all that creaminess. I'm going to zoom in. Bits of mushroom, little bits of sausage, and that creamy goodness. When it's done, it should make a wave in the pan so that the rice comes back in to fill the space that you've left. Has enough moisture to do that, but not so soupy that you have soup instead of risotto. Let me taste now for salt. That's perfect. Last step. Butter. And this has to be butter. This should not be oil. Because the purpose of this is to add the creaminess of the butter. I'm going to fold that in, turn it off, serve it right away. I'll be back. Well, there we have it. Risotto and Italian sausage with mushrooms. I've sprinkled little green onions on top, chopped finely. You could also sprinkle it with a little fresh parsley. Would be wonderful. And the last step, a little, or a lot, freshly grated cheese. I'm using Gruyere. Parmesan, Parmigiano Reggiano is more traditional. I love Gruyere. So let's go in for the taste. That is so good. Too bad it's so high carb. With our nice Italian sausage and a salad. This is a meal. You don't need anything else. So good. Talking with my mouth full again. I know that this takes a little time. It's so worth the time. And it's a nice change up on pasta. It's a nice change up on your regular rice. I really hope you enjoy it. I hope you try it. Give it a shot. As I said, the directions for the method are right on the back of the box. Pretty easy peasy. The rest of it's just recipe, and you can make up your own. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch for risotto. See you tomorrow.